Last story of the day from NBC News. 12 white male officers are suing San Francisco police for race and sex bias. The lawsuit challenges a test scoring method that the city adopted in 1979 in response to a lawsuit from a group representing black and female officers who alleged discrimination in hiring and promotions. Now, this story is actually part of a bigger piece that I'm working on about the blowback of intersectional feminism, and it's launching from the premise from Brett Weinstein, who is a brilliant man. I think he's wonderful. If you're not familiar, I recommend you go check out his content. But I'm going to focus specifically on this, but I am going to highlight one more issue that I brought up in another story, and it's that in this bit of data from Tablet magazine called America's White Saviors, we can see that white liberals are the only racial political group with an out-group bias, meaning they hate white people. These are white people who hate white people. And that's a bit hyperbolic. They're white people who favor non-white people is a better way to put it. Conservatives don't feel this way. This is ultra-progressives. The reason I'm highlighting this is because I want to talk about the issue of discrimination against white men, of which there absolutely is some. And I know this because, as I've stated time and time again, I am a mixed race person. So trust me when I say I've experienced racism from both sides, and it's why I hate identity politics. Identity politics in the sense that they are going to restrict or support someone based on their race. As a person of varying ethnicities and heritage, I've been like, you know what, man? Let me just put it this way. When you are mixed, you do not get the benefits of both sides. You get the detriments of both sides. And I'm sure there are many mixed people who understand what I'm talking about. If you're not, don't take it as a negative. I'm saying, you've got these intersectional activists saying white people are discriminated against. You've got white people saying this is proof of discrimination. And I'm saying, I hear you both. I do. I understand. Okay? That's why it is bad to discriminate against even white men. But let's read the story. Now, before we get started, go to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address, but of course, like, comment, share, subscribe. Engagement really, really helps. 12 white male San Francisco police officers are suing the city, arguing they were passed over for promotions because of their race and gender. The San Francisco Chronicle reports Wednesday that the lawsuit, which was filed Tuesday in federal court, is the latest round in a conflict that dates back decades. A 13th plaintiff who is now retired says he was also denied promotion because she is a white lesbian. Wow. Whoa, this is really interesting. So this is not just 12 white men. We now have a lesbian female joining in. Incredible. The lawsuit challenges a test scoring method that the city adopted in 1979 in response to a lawsuit from a group representing black and female officers who alleged discrimination in hiring and promotions. San Francisco bans promotional test scores. I don't know what that means. So that people who score within a certain range are treated the same, which means the department can consider other factors, such as language skills and experience in awarding promotions. That sounds fine. The latest lawsuit challenges that method. Well, tell me why. The city, to this day, has a long-standing practice and custom of discriminating against white males in SFPD promotions to the rank of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, said M. Greg Mullinax, the officer's attorney in the lawsuit. Mullinax said that in 2016, the department promoted 3 black sergeants, even though their scores were lower than those of 11 white candidates who were denied promotions. San Francisco settled a similar 2003 lawsuit for $1.6 million, but did not acknowledge wrongdoing. Mullinax said the Police Officers Association contacted Chief William Scott, but none of the officers who met with Scott received any substantive response. John Code, a spokesman for City Attorney Dennis Herrera, said the department uses lawful merit-based civil service examinations in making promotions. I want to come and address this comment first before moving on. They promoted 3 black sergeants, even though their scores were lower than those of 11 white candidates who were denied promotions. I want you to imagine this. There is a fire. I understand these are police officers, but there's a fire, and you need someone to come put that fire out. These people on the regressive left would rather cheer because the firefighters who showed up were black instead of competent. So I'm not saying these sergeants are not competent. They just scored less. This is an issue of intersectionality versus meritocracy. Should we have the best candidate, or should we have a racial component instead of skill? In my opinion, when it comes to saving lives, be it police or otherwise, it should not be race-based. Absolutely not. I do believe racial factors can be taken into consideration for some jobs. The DMV, I'm really not that concerned with merit necessarily when it comes to the DMV. I don't think it's fun. Like, listen, I am somebody who firmly believes there are issues of historical racism in this country that have created circumstances that persist to this day. It is typically wrong in most circumstances to discriminate against one person in favor of another. That doesn't, bring about any kind of equality. However, I recognize nothing is black and white, for the most part, right? That was an absolute statement, so that was kind of a paradox. But let me put this. Typically, things aren't black and white. You will find there's some circumstances where you can say, perhaps we should have someone who is black even though they scored less. Perhaps you want a firefighter who's going to be primarily working in the black community and knows the people who there is a member of that community, in which case that might be really important. Because there are factors outside whether or not you know how to operate the fire hose, such as, will you be a cohesive force for this community? So, admittedly, race plays a factor in these issues. But I will add, too, it's not so much about the race in that regard. It's an issue of community membership, community service. So, I want to stress that it is complicated. But I will also stress when it comes to police, there are factors that should be considered. Is the police officer a member of the community, regardless of race? Are you going to put a, middle-class white officer in a low-income black neighborhood? I think that's a recipe for problems. Not always bad. I'm not saying it's always bad. I'm saying racial factors can play a role regardless of test. When it comes to the bare bones of meritocracy, however, I'd rather have the most suited to save my life. I understand that in policing, it's not necessarily about whether or not they're going to save lives. There are other issues, such as being able to work with people at an effective level. What I find absolutely fascinating, though, in this study from Tablet, let me read you this, because it was in a different video, but I want to read it now. The study says, remarkably, white liberals were the only subgroup exhibiting pro-outgroup bias, meaning white liberals were more favorable towards non-whites, and are the only group to show this preference for group than their own. Indeed, on average, white liberals rated ethnic and racial minority groups 13 points warmer than whites. This is the problem I have. I do not believe they are trying to give black officers a position for the right reasons. I believe they're just racist. As I mentioned, right, and I know my answer is probably not perfect, there absolutely are reasons to take race into consideration for some jobs. But when you look at this study, you can see that's not why they're doing it. They're just biased. They're racists. Plain and simple. I will never look at a person and say you should or shouldn't have this job because of your race. I will, however, say I am willing to take into all the considerations and factors to the betterment of humanity. And that means opposing negative discrimination, questioning positive discrimination. That yes, positive discrimination is a thing. And recognizing that race doesn't define the person, but can play a role in social cohesion. I want to stress why these things matter to me, as you may have heard me talk about in the past. The left, typically the left, all of them, are extreme. They hold racist and prejudicial views, particularly when it comes to Asians, of which I find myself. I find myself, funny, I am. I don't find myself the way I've always been this way. It is what it is. Literally, my existence is threatened. And I love how they like to say, racists threaten the existence of minorities. Well, so do you when you claim that all Asians are the same race. Bigots, please. No. Okay? The problem I have is that they claim all white people are the same. They're not. Tell my Ukrainian friend, okay, that they're the same as a posh British person. Please, no. There are differences based on your ethnicity, the country you come from. Just because your skin is white doesn't mean you're good or bad. It's racism, plain and simple. For me, it comes down to having actual and racists who don't like mixed race people, and also the left-wing racists who just don't like white people, and they both get mad at me. But I'll tell you what, when I look at how they have these biased systems, and they want to claim Asian is one group, I'm sorry, man, they're not. Tell a wealthy Chinese person, tell somebody from Singapore, they're the same as somebody from, the Philippines. And people do. They absolutely do. They say that Laotians and the Vietnamese are the same as Indians. I just can't stand this stuff, man. So, whatever your opinion is, I'm not super familiar with how this is going to play out with the white officers filing a suit. I do think we have a problem that is not reverse racism. That is not what it is. This is literal racism, period. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment to come tomorrow at 10 a.m. for those on the podcast, every day around 6:30. And I will see you all next time.